Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing 5 books that I really want to reread. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down the description box below for links to all of my social medias, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways from me. So I am not the type of person that rereads books very frequently, which is silly because if there's a book that I absolutely love, it makes sense that I would want to dig back into that world. And there's really only been a couple books in my life that I have read more than once. And these are all the books that for some reason or another I want to reread. And there's a little bit of everything in there. So without further ado, let's just get on into it. The first one is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is an adult fantasy that is highly and well beloved in the book community, adult fantasy book community. This is some people's favorite fantasy book of all time, and we have the sequel, and then Patrick Rothfuss still hasn't published the 3rd book. And believe it or not, I read this book probably 12 years ago, and I actually DNF'd it over halfway through. And I actually remember absolutely nothing about this book. Nothing. Not the world, not the plot, not the characters. And I think I DNF'd it because I was fairly bored by it. And I just think at that time when I was reading fantasy, I just wasn't as seasoned fantasy reader as I am today. So it is a series and a book that I want to give another chance. So I do plan on obviously rereading it, even though I never actually finished it the first time. The next book I really want to reread is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. I read this book a couple of years ago and just fell in love with this story and with this author. Anthony Ryan has become one of my favorite adult fantasy authors. And I read Tower Lord, which is the sequel to this book, and I never read Queen of Fire, which is the final book. And I really don't remember much about the plot, so I'd have to kind of start at the beginning in order to finish the series. And I'm not even sure I want to finish the series because I have heard such negative things about how the series ended that I might just, be happy with having read the first book and keeping this as one of my favorites. But the reason that I loved Bloodsong so much is that Anthony Ryan just knows how to create such realistic characters that you grow to intimately know and care for and love, to the point where you actually feel like you are the character himself, like you are walking in his shoes, you are experiencing everything that he experiences. So he's just really good at dragging you so deeply into a story. But in Bloodsong, we follow a character named Valen, and when Valen was 10 years old, his father just dropped him off at this school for this order that is devoted to battle. And Valen didn't know, but his father was actually kind of like this battle chief to the king, and he would have had a more noble, well-off life if his father hadn't abandoned him to this battle order. So Valen just kind of grows up resentful and trying to make his own way in the world, and eventually learns some things about himself and magic and gets involved in the political machinations of the world, as is fantasy. But like I said, I do want to finish the series. If anything, I would just like to reread Bloodsong because I remember loving it so much the first time I read it. So another book I would like to reread at some point. The next book is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I first read this when I was a teenager and I remember falling in love with it. And I also really liked the movie adaptation, which if you in retrospect watch it, really isn't that good of an adaptation from the book. But I just remember loving this book. I found it so dark and so creepy, and the characters just so deranged. And I want to reread it as an adult because I want to see if my opinions and perceptions have changed. And another reason I want to reread this is because I never finished the series. So I read this and then I tried to read The Vampire Lestat and actually DNF'd it. And I don't remember why. I don't remember if it's because I wasn't enjoying it or just life got in the way, and I never picked it up again. And I'm so far removed from the story and the characters in the world that I do want to start at the beginning in order to eventually finish The Vampire Chronicles. And another reason I want to reread it is that a couple of years ago I read Anne Rice's Wolf Chronicles, the first 2 books in that series, and I thought they were horrible. I barely got through the first one, and I think I DNF'd the second one. So I was like, oh my gosh, is Anne Rice just an author that I only could as a teenager? Am I not going to be able to connect with her as an adult? And I have such good memories of this book. Am I going to hate it now? So I'm just curious as to how I will perceive this book as an adult and a more invested fantasy reader. The next book I want to reread is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is another book that is some people's favorite book of all time, and I have it on my fantasy bookshelf. I consider this fantasy. A lot of people consider this like literary fiction, but it follows a magical circus, so how can that not be like fantasy? But in this book, like I said, we follow a magical circus, but then we follow two characters, Marka and I think Celia, and they are magicians, and they have been like brought up and groomed to eventually duel. And I don't really remember, but I'm assuming whoever like wins maybe controls the circus. I don't remember. But anyway, these two characters meet and fall in love, and that kind of like squashes the plans of them dueling. And I remember picking this book up because of the hype, and I thought the writing was absolutely gorgeous. Like, you talk about imagery and figurative language and just flowery writing. The Night Circus is it. But when you talk about plot, the plot was incredibly weak from what I remember. And I just thought I was missing something because so many people love this book. I was like, I gotta be just like not picking up on some nuances. I don't know. So I've always wanted to reread this book. The world itself just was really excellent, but I think the plot and the characters just kind of frustrated me to no end. So I just want to reread this out of curiosity and also to be back in the world. And this might be one that I'll knock out over summer because I feel like magical circuses kind of go with summer. I don't know. So, but I'm curious. Let me know if The Night Circus is one of your favorite books. And the last one is 1984 by George Orwell. Believe it or not, I never read this in school. I didn't read this until I was an adult, and I was a fairly young adult. I was in my 20s, and once again, I feel like I was at the age where I didn't really understand everything that the book was trying to communicate. I feel like there were probably some themes and some ideas that I didn't quite pick up on, and now that I'm so much older, I can really go back in and analyze what George Orwell was trying to communicate about totalitarianism, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, surveillance, privacy rights, that kind of thing. So I really do want to reread this also because it's fairly short and just kind of look at it and analyze it from a new lens, also based on some things that are going on in our current world, kind of maybe seeing if George Orwell was able to predict or foresee certain things based on, I don't know, clues from his time period. So 1984 is a classic that I definitely want to get to, and like I said, it's short. I can easily read it, and I'll definitely do a review for you guys when I finally get around to rereading it. All right, y'all, those are 5 books that I could see myself rereading in the near future or want to reread. Just let me know in the comments if I should prioritize any of them, which ones you've read and really recommend, or read and really don't recommend me reread, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye.